Okay, so we just went through the code in our previous video on how to add a student, in this case, insert, how to insert. Again, hopefully you have a decent understanding on what we did here in regards to the code. I recommend you go out and look at this a little bit. And again, make sure that you validate in your program everything coming in via your form, okay? Uh, Make sure you understand the concept of what we're trying to accomplish here in regards to finding the last primary key and incrementing it by one. Because once again, you cannot have duplicate primary keys, and this is how we'll do this right now. A little bit later on in the course, I'll show you different ways of doing this. Okay? Well, what I wanted to do in this video more than anything, I'm going to kind of get rid of this and this, is show you and analyze this string here, okay? So what we're basically doing is inserting and using an insert command, okay? It basically, or insert, yeah, we'll call it command, whatever, statement. And we're building the insert into students with all the columns of our table, and then we're going to look at the values. If you notice here, again, we're building out a string. So it gets a little bit weird the first time you do it, okay? What we're trying to do is emulate this right here, correct? So we're emulating this student insert that we did in our script in our database class, where we basically said, okay, we have all this, here's the columns we want to insert into, and here's the data. Well, what we're doing here, instead of putting data like this in here, we're putting the variables in which we actually is holding the data for us. But in doing so, we still have to encapsulate each piece of this data based upon if it's a numeric or if it's an alphabetic or alphanumeric character. For instance, if we sit back and we look at student ID, it's a numeric character and there is no quotes around it. So as you see, we do the double quotes is for the string. So I take the string, and then I stop it. I start the string with values, stop it, do a concatenation, and I put in the actual primary key right here, okay? Concatenate again, and then I put in a comma. So we're emulating, let's see if I can do this a little bit better. We're emulating this part right here, and then we're putting the comma in. Then I'm also in this string putting a single quote in for first name. Are you following this? I end that string, I concatenate, and then I add the first name. Concatenate again, put the second little single quote there and a comma, and the beginning single quote for the last name. And I keep doing that all the way down. Okay? When we get down to city, what you'll notice is that I encapsulated the address, okay, with the single quotes, comma, but I'm not putting anything around that numeric. And so there is no single quote there. All I'm doing is just basically putting in the number, comma, and so on. I hope I'm explaining that well. So what I want you to do to really understand this is look at an insert, okay, and look what we're doing here. What we're doing is building out a string with all these concatenations. We're entering the information from the variables along with the string, along with encapsulating the variables based upon if it's a single quote or whatever, and then basically separating everything with a comma, and that's what we're doing throughout there. One of the things I like doing sometimes, so you have a decent idea of what this actually looks like, is to use the good old message box right here, okay? So let's go ahead and run this program real fast. And I will add, I'm going to do an add students, okay? And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and populate this. And we'll just say Bob Nields and blah blah blah, and 410 over 2, and we're just making up stuff here. Dash 66 dash 6666, and I'll just say I was born today. Okay, and we add a student, and this message box. Let's see if I can move this around. Can I move this around a little bit? I'm not going to be able to. This message box represents what this string actually looks like before it's executed. And as you see, insert into T students. Here's all the columns. And then look how it looks. 8, comma, Bob with the single quotes around it, comma, Niels with single quotes around it, comma. My address, then you see the foreign keys there for city and state, my zip code with the single quotes. My date also would have single quotes, and then 4, which would be, I think that's for my race, I believe. That's the foreign key for that with no single quotes, and then finally my social security number. Does that make sense? Highly recommend as you try to get used to this to run this a couple times and make sure you do that and put that message box there and look at it. And you'll see that this looks identical to what we did in our database, okay? Also, what's kind of cool about this is that if you sit back and I like this message box.show, especially on inserts, because once again, especially on the first couple, heck, I even do it. I've been doing this for years now because you can fat finger this quite easily. And what will happen is that if something's wrong in this insert and when it executes that non-query, execute non-query, you'll get an error. Okay? And you'll go, why did I get an error? Well, go look at the insert and make sure it looks identical to the one you did in your database class. Okay? And with the same single quotes around the right fields and the commas. If something's wrong there, it'll tell you, and that's all you got to do is figure that out. Once you do this a few times, you got it. Okay? And there you go. That's how you insert a row into a database from your application.